Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Sibme Coach Replay Show. I'm your host, Cory Camp, and I'm super excited today to have a new special guest with us, Amy Youngblood, who is one of our Sibme virtual coaches from our amazing team of virtual coaches here at Sibme. In addition to coaching for Sibme, Amy is the founder and executive director, big stuff, you guys, of Edu Optimus, where she provides professional development primarily in leadership, mathematics, and assessment. In addition to all of the amazing work she does in education, she enjoys spending her free time, with her husband, adult children, and dogs. Welcome, Amy.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to talk about math today.
I am too. So this is our first subject-specific, content-specific episode. Math is, so I was a special educator and I kind of worked in all the subject areas at one point when I was a co-teacher. I got to float around with a group of students that I supported in inclusive practices. But, English has always been more of my wheelhouse. But I always enjoyed learning from my math-minded people. So I'm really excited. I know about this topic. I was telling you before the show this morning, I'm familiar with our topic today, but I just really have only heard of it. So I'm going to be a learner today, learning from you about our topic, which is math language routines, and really talking about what they are. So this is a two-part episode. We'll have you this week, and then we'll have you back in 2 weeks to talk a little bit more deeply about math language routines. But today we're going to talk about what it is and look at an example of this in the classroom. So, Amy, tell us, what are math language routines?
So math language routines were created and came out of Stanford University in California. And really, they are meant to support students' mathematical language development, and specifically really built for our newcomers into our nation. But what we have found is that they're really good for all students. So math is very much a specialized language. Lots of times it's compared to learning a foreign language. And so these math language routines really help students and teachers address that specialized academic language demand, and really then get kids meeting those demands of reading, writing, speaking, listening, and conversing in mathematics. There are 8 mathematical language routines, and they were built around 4 design principles. And those design principles that Stanford used were they wanted to support sense making in math. They wanted to optimize student output, so what students are sharing with each other or writing. And then they wanted to cultivate that conversation. We know conversation among peers is very important in mathematics. And finally, they wanted to maximize that linguistic and cognitive meta-awareness.
That's awesome. And I really like how you broke it down into those design principles, because I think we can all make sense of those, right? And just good teaching, learning is social, being able to talk about what we're learning and how we're connecting to that, and how we're, processing that and taking it into a product and output, I know is really important. And now that you mentioned this comes from Stanford University, one of my favorite people, you probably know her, Jo Boaler from UCubed. I got to listen to her speak, and I bet that's where I heard about math language routines, was from her. I'm totally a fangirl of her. And again, I'm not, primarily a math teacher, but I love it. And I love all that she talked to our math group about that one time I saw her in Austin. So then what are we going to focus on today? And audience, if you've got a question for Amy, if you're a learner like I am about math language routines, post your question below, either live during the show if you're watching us, or after the fact, send us your questions. So what are we talking about today? Is there a specific one we want to focus on?
There are. So as I said, there are 8. And I'll go ahead and tell you all 8, and then I'll tell you which one we're going to focus on. So the first one is stronger and clearer each time. The second one is collect and display. The third one is critique, correct, and clarify. The fourth one is the information gap. If you don't know about the information gap, I hope to talk about it, but it's definitely one of my favorite, but not the one we're talking about today. Okay. 5 is co-craft questions and problems. 6 is actually an ELA kind of like strategy. It's called 3 Greens. And 7 is compare and connect. And then 8 is discussion support. So today we're going to talk about and focus on collect and display.
Okay, real quick before we talk about collect and display, so how do all 8 of these routines work together? Are they sequential in the utilization? Are they kind of just a big toolbox that you pick out of depending on what you're teaching or where your students are? How do they work in unison?
So they're more of a toolbox.
Mm-hmm.
What do you need, what your students need, and then you pick from them. So remember just a few minutes ago, I talked about those 4 design principles. Mm-hmm. And so if you think about your lesson and what it is that you want from your students, some of these routines are better matches to certain design principles.
Gotcha.
And so you might choose one routine over another then based on what it is you want for your students and what you want for your classroom.
Okay, good. That's good. That's good to know. I know that wasn't part of our primed questions, but I was really kind of wondering that. Again, I'm the learner here. So
great question.
So thank you. So math language routine number 2, collect and display. Tell us a little bit about this one.
So collect and display is a math routine, right? Where we are trying to pull math language out of kids and trying to make it a regular part of their discussion, their vocabulary, helping them with that. There's different ways that you can do collect and display. I think I shared an article with you from Stanford that you're going to post. Is that correct?
Yes. And I can, let me see if I can pull that up here from our huddle, which is one of my favorite things about Sibme, is it's more than just sharing video. Let me share my screen here too. You can also share resources.
Absolutely.
Oh, and I'm not able to share that one in here because I'm sharing from a tab. But yes, okay. We're going to post it below in here, understanding language. And it's the principles of design. So perfect.
Absolutely. So it will give you a more in-depth understanding of collect and display. It also gives you some examples. One of those examples it talks about is simply having Post-it notes and recording the language you hear students using and then displaying that somewhere for students. The other one that we're going to actually talk about is Number Talks. And so Number Talks is a version of collect and display. I know lots of people are familiar with Number Talks. And they're a really great way to get students to think deeply about math, but also engage them in that mathematical language.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm excited to see that. Before we do have a question from one of our viewers. Kelly asked us, so is each routine standalone? And I think this kind of goes back to that question I had asked before, right? If it's just this toolbox that you kind of choose as related to what you need to do with your students, or if there are any kind of like one leads right into the other kind of thing.
So they can stand alone, but I think some of them can actually be stacked together. Mm-hmm. So for example, the Number Talk, which is a collect and display, could also, you could use some compare and connect with that when you maybe get students to compare some answers and talk about what's similar about that. How do both answers get you to the same place?
Awesome. Okay, good. I like that idea of stacking them and kind of, again, I think it sounds to me like those design principles are really the big drivers for you deciding which one you need to kind of pull from, and kind of remembering that as the crux of it. Great question. Thank you, Kelly, for posting that. Again, if you have a question, post it in the comments below, especially if you're live. We'll try to get that answered for you. So like you said, there's many ways to do collect and display. We're going to take a look at a video example, right, of you doing this.
Right. We're going to take a look at me leading a number talk. Just a little information. This was done at a school that I work with through my consulting. And these are 5th through 8th graders that are there for summer school.
Okay. Okay, good. It's always good to have that context in here. So let me pull my screen in. And so this is a larger clip, but we're just going to play a few pieces of this. So we'll start at this 46-second mark. Anything we need to know that we need to know about what happens in the first 30 seconds of this clip?
So yeah, kind of in the first 30 seconds, one of the things you'll see me do is show some hand signals. Mm-hmm. With a number talk, primarily it's around mental math. And one of the things that I want to try to avoid is kids shouting out answers. I don't want them stealing the thinking from other kids. And so the first 30 seconds, you'll see me just quickly teach them some hand signals I want them to use.
Beautiful. So then we should start this video from the very start then, you think, Amy, and then stop around that 2-minute mark, right?
Right. Start at the 46 second because that's when I start to introduce the.
Beautiful. Okay, here we go. We're going to check out the start of this model of number talks.
Show you the hand signals. This hand signal means I'm thinking. Okay. This hand signal means I have an answer. If you have more than one way to solve the problem, you can show me multiple fingers. Okay. This means I agree. All right.
Why would you have more than 10? You don't have 10 fingers.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, use your feet.
Please don't. I want to know. I'm going to give you 2 numbers. And I want to know greater than, less than, or equal to. Whoops. Okay. And I'm going to want to know how you know. So there's your first 2. Remember, you're not going to shout it out. You're going to keep it in your head. You're going to give me hand signals when you're ready.
What does this mean?
That doesn't mean anything. That's not one I gave you. So I'm thinking or have an answer. So if you're still thinking, hold it like that.
Everybody's ready.
No, everybody's not ready. I'm giving them some think time. Okay, we're going to start. Let's start right here. What do you think? So he thinks that 24/50 is greater than 24/38. So I see some people that maybe don't agree with that. Thinks that 24/50.
All right. Sorry, I had some problems. My buttons were overlapping there for pause and rewind. I just have to say, first of all, I love that age level. That was the group that I taught primarily when I was in the classroom, that 5th through 8th grade, and they keep you on your toes. So
they absolutely keep you on your toes. And no, I don't want them taking their shoes off to show me how
exactly. Let's keep our shoes on. I made that mistake one year. My intro, like my first day getting to know you activity, involved everyone taking one of their shoes off and putting it in the front of the room. And then you were supposed to go pick somebody else's shoe up, and whatever shoe you picked up, you had to find the owner of that shoe and then get to know them. worst idea ever, especially after the PE classes happened.
Oh,
So
no.
anyways, lots of stinky feet on day one.
Exactly.
Oh,
So
goodness.
one of the things that, I wanted to highlight here is, first of all, you saw one of the little boys is saying, hey, everybody's got an idea. And I'm redirecting him and saying, no, we're not ready
everyone's signals. I know. I love the use of the signals as a way. It's a great, we just talked about opportunities to respond and active participation. That's a great strategy for that.
Absolutely. And lots of times teachers will, I didn't in this classroom, but teachers have their kids put their signal right here so that it's not like out where everybody can see and we're stressing other people out. I didn't in that time, but it's certainly, if you have a group of kids that you know maybe might be more reluctant than others, keeping that signal at your chest might help some of that anxiety.
Great tip.
The other thing I want to talk about here is, so when he says the fraction, he says, how did he say it? 24 over 50, I think is maybe what he said. I didn't directly correct him, but what I did, if you noticed, is I modeled the way to correctly say the fraction. And you'll notice maybe different times throughout this video that I do that. So I'm not saying, hey, you're saying that wrong. Don't say it that way. But I'm giving them the model for correctly saying it and trying to reinforce that.
Right.
What did you, I'm going to ask you a question now. What did you notice that I did when he gave me the wrong answer?
So, gosh, now I feel like I'm on the spot. I've watched this video a couple of times. So if I went back, I'd probably go back and play it over again. But I think you asked him to rephrase it. Is that this part that I'm remembering correctly?
No, that's a different part.
Put me on the spot.
Actually, what I do is I take his answer and I ask for his reasoning. So I never let on that his answer is right or wrong. And that's an important part of a number talk, getting everybody talking, everybody feeling like mathematicians, and then working towards that. And just a hint so you kind of know where we're going, right? What I'm wanting to get out of this is for kids to use that benchmark fraction of a half.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, and yeah, we'll kind of, now that you say that, now that I know like that goal, the rest of the video makes sense to me as I watch it through. So I think that's important and powerful. I was watching, I just was getting lost in which part, what was there, but I want to go back to that real quick about how you supported that student with that incorrect answer, right? You support psychological safety in that, which is a huge part. I mean, if we want our students to be talking and sharing their answers out loud, I mean, that's scary to do, especially if people are identifying as being not good at math, which we know, growth mindset, that's, you're not just born innately bad at math. That's important. So I really like that you pointed out that strategy. Definitely.
And so you should watch to how I respond to this child that has the correct answer. I think you'll see
and we're going to see
interesting similarity. Okay, so ready for the next part?
We are ready. I'm ready. I'm going to click play. Let me get us back over to the 46-second mark.
What do you think? It's less than? Why do you think it's more than? You don't know? Okay, that's okay. Why do you think it's more than? Or I'm sorry, less than. You did. Why do you think it's less than? You don't know? You don't know how to explain it? Okay. What do you think?
I think it's greater than the denominators.
You think it's greater than because of the denominators. What about the denominators makes you think, which one do you think is greater than, first of all?
50.
You think 24/50 is greater than 24/38? Why do you think that?
Well, I know.
All right, I took out my notepad this time so I could take notes as I'm watching. I'm a good student. I am. Yeah. Yeah. So again, you're asking for more evidence, right? You're not, and I love that you do that because my 10-year-old is very much, he's a pleaser. He likes to be correct. He'll shut down if he has too many unsuccessful or what he feels are unsuccessful experiences. So with him, I have to remind him a lot about growth mindset and just, being a learner, and that failure is okay, reframing that failure for him. But he is definitely one that, like, sometimes when I really want, like, his thinking, I've got to make sure I ask him, like, out of the room, and I'm really careful about the tone of my voice, because he looks to you. He's like my dog is an anticipator. So if he thinks, like, if I always do the same number of tricks in the same row, he's going to, like, sit down, he's going to roll over, and then he's going to sit back up again, and he's going to jump. So I think students can do that as well. They listen really carefully to what we're saying. But I like how you didn't give them anything. You have great poker face, and you said, tell me more about your thinking. Tell me why you think that is. So it's good stuff.
Absolutely, and that's what I wanted to bring up here, right? We still don't have a right answer with reasoning. We have some wrong answers with reasoning, and I'm trying to pull that reasoning out. And partially right because it's going to come back around when we do have some correct reasoning.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead, let's start it back up.
All right, from right where we are, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, here we go.
Okay.
But I think in fractions it's the other way. I don't know.
Okay. All right. What do you think?
I think 2438 is greater than, because the denominator is closer to 1.
And? So there's more to that sentence. And?
That's basically it. I know what he's trying to say.
I know. Okay, what's he trying to say?
Because as a fraction, 2438 is more than 2458.
Why?
It's closer to
Because
the 38.
24, if you cut 24 slices at 38, you get bigger and more pieces. But if you have 24 and 50, your pieces are going to be small.
Okay, so he says, listen, here's what he said. Let's hear if we agree with this. You're saying if I have a piece of pizza or a pizza pie, right? And I cut it into 38 pieces. That's a lot of pieces.
That's even.
My pieces would be larger than if I cut it into 50 pieces.
Yes. Because 50, you'd have to narrow it down.
Okay,
Because it's less than.
and because
50 is less than.
you're saying because my numerators are the same, all I have to know is my size. Oh, interesting. Okay, what do
All right. I have to say real quick though, the amount of, like, hair and face touching, like, you can see the wheels turning in their brains, which I love.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, one of them's, like, trying to warm his brain up. But I also love that I heard something that I just wanted to note out there, because psychological safety has been something I really a lot of things to it, but I heard a kid say, try, and then say, I don't know. Or I think it's this, but I don't know why. And then another one saying, I think I know what he's saying. And then they're rephrasing, right? They're trying to paraphrase within that or say that again. So I love that. I'm loving all this in here.
And what did you notice? What was the difference in how I reacted when he gave me his right answer versus how I reacted when I got a wrong answer?
So within this one, you're again saying, tell me why you're thinking that. And then you said, and, right? Like, almost like you're on the right track. There's more to that. Keep that thought. Stay on that train of thought there, right?
Right. But so I would hope, right, as I look at this and I think about this, my reaction hopefully isn't much different.
Right.
Like, I'm trying to get more out of him because I know he's on the right track, but I don't want to give away in my facial reactions or my physical reactions that, hey, you're right, and all these other people were wrong. Let's talk about it, think about it.
Yeah. And you're still like taking in what other people are saying and letting them kind of add to that or give a little bit more. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, here we go with some more. This is good
Okay.
stuff.
What do you think?
24 pages is less than because it's 24 is further away than 24 to 38.
Okay. So can you say, I think I know where you're going. Can you say it maybe in a little different way?
24 is farther away from 50 than it is from 38.
So you're saying if I have 50 here, 0 here, and 25 here, that 24 would be here? Right? And then you're saying if I had 38 here, 19, I would have 19 here, because that's half, right? This is half. And then, so I would have 24 maybe about here. Is that what you're saying? What is it about these two marks? The 25 and the 19?
25 is right now.
So when I look at my number line that's going to 50, 25 is exactly where? One middle, right? It's 1/2. 19 is 1/2. So 24/50 is what? Less than 1/2. 24/38 is more than 1/2. Is that what you were trying to? That's what I thought. Yes, sir.
Because the bigger the number is, the less of a less value. So 24 and 38 would be bigger than 24.
Okay.
And 24 and 50 it's bigger value. Wait, no, it's smaller value because the denominator is bigger.
Okay. All right. Let's try another one.
Okay.
All right.
So awesome to see their thinking and how it's progressing and how they're bouncing off of each other. And I see that outcome, right, of like we finally got to that relationship to the half piece.
Right.
Within
And
these
if
fractions.
you watch the rest of the video, right, then we're reinforcing and trying to get more at that thinking about a half. How do we compare other numbers to a half? I will tell you that having watched the video now several times, if I were coaching myself, one of the things I would coach myself on is thinking about, can you get more to display, right? So you saw me display a number line, but really I should have displayed the, when we talked about the pizza pie and cutting it into those pieces, I should have modeled that, because then we could have had that connect and compare conversation and layered it where we could have compared two different ways to do it.
Right.
So that would be a coaching piece that I would watch this video and think, oh, wow, she really should have gotten more down on the board. But I'll tell you, with number talks, getting what the kids say and recording that on the board is one of the hardest parts.
Yeah, and I love that you have that kind of personal reflection. It's one of my favorite ways to use video is to have a little bit of a model and say missed opportunities, right? These teachable moments, even for me, because again, if we're really doing responsive teaching, it's a little messy, even when we've kind of refined that craft a little bit. Going back to those design principles, right? I want to remind our viewers and Kelly in response to talking about how we are responding to incorrect and correct responses. She said, that response really honors the thinking rather than the answer, which I think goes right into our design principles of supporting the sense making,
right,
optimizing the output, cultivating the conversation. And I think, again, that's what we're seeing here. The conversation is really that thinking coming out of their brains and into the room for us to kind of work with. And then maximizing the linguistic and cognitive meta awareness. So again, when they, say the fraction incorrectly, restating it, reinforcing it in the appropriate way. So you can really see how these kind of all align within this. And again, you can't really appropriately collect unless you get people talking and sharing together. And again, that snowballs of these different ideas, and I've thought of it differently and all of that. So I'm loving this. Makes me want to go teach a math class.
Wonderful. I love to hear that.
Join into my daughter's second grade classroom and say, hey.
So number talks are appropriate for all grade levels. I have modeled them all the way from K to high school.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. And again, like you said, like this would fit really easily into an upper secondary high school classroom. Again, right? Learning is social, and we've got to talk about it and think about it and connect with it outside in our outside voice, not just our in our head voice. I love that. This has been great. I'm really, really piqued my interest. I'm so excited, and I'm thankful that you shared a video of yourself doing this in the classroom. We're going to have you come back. So what will we be talking about when we come back for part 2? We're going to break down another one of the math language routines, right? We are going to next time talk about critique, correct, and clarify. I love it. I love it. So join us, audience, if you're interested in this. Join us January 31st, same time, same place, always live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. I said that really weird. 2 p.m. Eastern. Enunciated way too much. So again, Amy, this has been great. Thank you. We'll have the takeaways for everyone to be able to download that resource that you shared with me within the huddle, as well as some additional tips and things to remember about facilitating math language routines. Anything else for our audience before we let them go?
I don't think so. I would say that there are some number talk books out there that are great, and by Sherry Parrish and a couple others. And so if you're looking for a resource to really read and dig into about number talks, that would be a recommendation I would go for.
Perfect. And we can put that down in the comments below after the show. Well, thanks again, Amy. We'll see you again at the end of the month.
I can't wait.
I can't wait either. It's going to be great. Everyone, join us next week for another episode of the Sibme Coach Replay Show.